biases, thinking biases. So this I'll keep it in the beginning. Let me go to the next passage. Human eye is a sophisticated instrument. Images enter through a curved lens at the front of the sphere, pass through its gooey vitreous before reaching the light center retina, which relays signal. साइंस के ऊपर थोड़ा इंजीनियर्स हैव अटेम्प्ट टू रेप्लिकेट द स्ट्रक्चर न्यू आर्टिफिशियल आई मिमिक्स ओके सो आई की बनावट के ऊपर उसमें थोड़ा सा साइंटिफिक हो सकता है, तो इसको थोड़ा सा बाद में करेंगे. लेट मी लुक एट द नेक्स्ट वन. द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन स्लीप, ड्रीमिंग एंड क्रिएटिविटी हैज बीन द सब्जेक्ट ऑफ कंजेक्चर फॉर hundreds of years. Decided for material mining, he would doze off with field sphere. Okay, this is about sleep, dreaming and creativity, so this should be okay. इसको शुरू में रखेंगे, not later on. Then let me look at the last one. Despite its British origin, political versus legal constitutional debate is not confined to UK. Adopt Westminster parliamentary understandable constitutions, political process. Okay, this is not really my cup of tea. Technicalities engendered. Okay, this looks like a very heavily politics kind of a thing. So इसको बाद में लास्ट में. Okay, so my order is clear. सबसे पहले पहला वाला करेंगे, फिर थर्ड वाला करेंगे, फिर सेकंड, और फिर then we'll see if time remains. So let me now go to the VA part. Okay, so collective statistical illiteracy refers to the widespread inability to understand the meaning of numbers. Statistical literacy is a necessary precondition for an educated citizenship in a technological democracy. Understanding risk and asking critical questions can shape the emotional climate in a society that hopes and anxieties are no longer as easily manipulated from outside, and citizens can develop a better informed and more relaxed attitude towards their health. Okay, not a very long thing. Collective social statistical illiteracy. Okay, statistical illiteracy is a necessary precondition. Understanding can shape the emotional hopes and anxiety no longer manipulated from outside. Okay, statistical illiteracy renders the emotional climate in a society vulnerable to manipulation. Okay, statistical illiteracy. This is about collective statistical illiteracy. इसको अभी नहीं देखें, बाद में देखें. Collective statistical illiteracy can make the emotional climate resistant to manipulation. This is wrong. There should be literacy here. तो इसको हटाओ. Collective statistical literacy can protect a technological society from anxieties that can be easily manipulated by external forces. This looks okay. Collective statistical literacy can create a technological democracy resilient to external manipulation. Okay, so I think answer should be between C and D. B says can protect a technological society from anxieties. Technological society वहां पे लिखा हुआ है technological democracy, और यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है from anxieties, वहां पे लिखा हुआ है so that hopes and anxieties are no longer as easily manipulated from outside. So this talks about only anxieties. And D says can create a technological democracy resilient to external manipulation. I'll go with D here because यहाँ पे वो नहीं है. ठीक है, let me look at the next one. Trained to ensure that even simple advice is backed by evidence, lawyers read closely to the point of comprehension. Lawyer's craft can sometimes be boiled down to a willingness to immerse herself with a fine print. Such a skill. Okay, fledgling startups inevitably have to rely on experience, and lawyers fit well in such situations. Fine, we'll start with 2 here because 2 talks about the lawyer's craft can sometimes be boiled down to willingness to immerse within the fine print. Okay, such a skill. Okay, such a skill enables a lawyer to take responsibility for a wider variety of important matters. Okay, so 2 के बाद 3 आ सकता है. Then 1 says trained to ensure that even simple advice is backed by evidence. Lawyers read closely to the point of comprehension, but this point is linked more to second. Fine print की बात कर रहा है. So fine print में reading more closely to the point of comprehension is a matter of professional. Okay, then third talks about responsibility for a wider variety, and fledgling startups have to rely on experience, and lawyers fit well in certain situations. So I think इसमें 2, 1 and then 3 and then 4 will be a better fit here. 2, 1, 3, 4 because 3 में such a skill, lawyer wider responsibility मिलेगी और वो startups में उसको use कर सकता है. Fine. So let's go to the next one. Much of the research concerning spatial working memory is focused on independent from other working memory systems. Okay, for instance, the influential model of working memory introduced by Baddeley and Heddich emphasizes the separability of visual, spatial, and verbal storage. Consistent with this model, there is now a substantial body of behavioral and neurophysical evidence supporting a functional dissociation between spatial and working. Although the dissection of verbal working memory into its component process has been productive, description of specific mechanism for that mediate spatial working has been more elusive. Okay, ठीक है. Much of the research is focused on, so spatial working memory अलग होती है और verbal working memory अलग होती है. और verbal working memory may we know that although this dissection of this into component has been productive, this description of spatial has been more elusive. Okay. Enough evidence exists for the argument that spatial and verbal working memory mechanism operate in completely different ways. बट इसमें ये सब कुछ नहीं बताया हुआ है कि इसकी प्रोसेस पता है, उसकी प्रोसेस नहीं पता है. दिस कैन नॉट बी द while there is evidence to support the delineation of spatial and working memory mechanisms, component process in the former are less understood than in case of the latter. Okay, so this looks to be okay. Still, component in the former is spatial में understood नहीं है, elusive है, और second में है. ठीक है. Spatial working memory is based in processes which are more difficult to understand than those of verbal storage according to new. Spatial is based in processes which are more difficult to understand than those. इसमें difference की बात नहीं की गई है. Neuropsychological evidence confirms the separability of visual, spatial, and verbal storage despite the lack of information about their. No, ये तो गलत है. तो second looks to be the correct answer here. Okay. Numerous studies have found the cognitive factors regarding crowd evacuation behaviors to be significant. Okay. A video clip captured during Great East Japan earthquake involving 48 people gave researchers unique opportunity because objective data are lacking exact effect of these factors. Okay. Using the video clip, fine. So 3, 4 dependent hai. Second talks about the specific. So 1 se start kar denge. So 1 talks about numerous studies that found the cognitive factors regarding crowd evacuation behaviors to be significant because objective data are lacking the exact effect of these factors. Right? These factors refer to what is given in 1. So we'll put 3 here, and then we'll talk about this video clip. Gave researchers a unique opportunity to access data, and using the video clip which is mentioned in 2. So 2 and then 4. So 2 and then 4. Okay. All right. Then we go to this one. This first sentence says, by photographing the wing scales of 82 moths from 26 different species using a camera that captures a wide spectrum of light, researchers viewed the insects in the infrared. Wavelengths of light is too long for humans to see. Okay. First में तो आ नहीं सकता. Moths, drab, gray, and brown coats may not capture imagination as much as a colorful butterfly cousin do. But according to recent, that's more of a failure of human eyesight than moths themselves. Fine. Second में, by photographing the wing scales, they using a camera, research infrared लेके आ गए. In infrared, the buff and beige wings are used to see. Okay, so this infrared is mentioned here. And there's nothing in the previous sentence about infrared, and it is there in this sentence, the main sentence. Therefore, ये तो बहुत clear दिख रहा है. Second में आ जाएगा. There is no other way it can go anywhere else. In infrared, okay, and this talks about infrared. So second, this no need to even read further. Second is this is a very easy question. Okay. From the place where the fault ruptures, seismic waves ripple outwards in all directions. Our planet is covered by tectonic plates that are slowly moving around, pushing onto or sliding past one another, called faults. Okay, from the place where the fault ruptures, seismic waves ripple. अभी कहाँ पे? अभी तो fault हुई है. Fault sometimes causes 2 of these plates to get stuck to each other at spots along a fault. Okay, from where the fault ruptures, seismic waves tension builds up over the years. अभी तो कहाँ पे? This is too premature. Decades or even centuries until the fault snaps. Okay, now fault snaps. So from the place where it can come in 3. From the place where fault ruptures, seismic wave ripples outward in all directions. The 2 sides lurch past each other. No, it won't come in 3. You condition earthquake. From the place where the fault ruptures, seismic wave ripple in outward direction when they reach. Okay, so this they talks about the seismic waves. Okay, the 2 sides lurch past is unleashing an earthquake from the place where fault seismic wave ripples. When they reach the earth surface, they can set buildings. Fine. So this will come in 4. Okay, this also turned out to be an easy question. Okay. Common misconception about investing in India is that country is politically homogeneous. Truth is, the ease of doing business and pace at which American companies can establish highly dependent on the Indian state in which they want to set up shop. Okay, in that sense, India is somewhat like European Union, where different states offer considerably different experiences. State laws differ in terms of labor law, environmental law, and property laws. This can affect, for example, land acquisition terms for factory construction. So it is very important for large projects to be mindful of different state laws. Okay, so अलग-अलग states के अलग-अलग laws होते हैं, and these people should. Whoever wants to invest has to look at each state's laws specifically. Okay. The ease of doing business in India is misunderstood by American companies that it is based on laws prevalent in the Indian state in which they want to set up shop. Ease of doing India business is misunderstood by American companies. It is based on the laws prevalent in the Indian state in which this is not. Doesn't make sense. The variation in state laws affect the ease of doing business in India, making it imperative for American companies to understand those before setting up shop here. Looks okay. No problem in this. Indian and European Union are similar in the sense they are made up of different states, different laws that affect the ease of doing business differently. Now, this passage, does it want to talk about India is like European Union in what sense? So, in that sense, India is somewhat like European Union, where the difference is an example. This is not the main point here. Okay, the misconception about India's political homogeneity hides the variation in laws across its various states, which affects the ease of doing business. Okay, this also looks all right. ऐसा कुछ गड़बड़ नहीं दिख रही इसमें. Misconception about India's political homogeneity hides the variation. But main point यहाँ पे ये है कि American companies को यहाँ पे आने के पहले they should be mindful of different state laws. It is important for large projects. तो ये point यहाँ पे नहीं है, तो I would go with true here. Okay, this was as much a crucial aspect power relation between colonizer and colonized in the empire. It was dimension of creation and contestation. This was cannot start. Indeed cannot start. Later cannot start. We will start with 3 only. Okay, so 3 से start कर देंगे, फिर देखते हैं आगे कुछ मिलता है क्या इसमें. What we thought of as English before the 19th century was a hybrid mixture of ancient Germanic, Latin, and French, let alone the Celtic languages immediately surrounding England. Okay, so English जो थी उसमें बहुत सारे mixture थे. Later, English was relational to all other languages spoken and written in the British Empire. Many words spoken were Indian, African, Native Americans. This was as much a crucial aspect of power relation between colonizer and colonized in the empire, into the dimension of creation and contestation of imposed identities. This looks like a closing statement, and this looks like a statement that should come before it. Indeed, for most of their history, इसको कहाँ लगाएंगे? For most of their history, the English themselves had not been pristinely, at least somewhat relationally, Anglophone. So अब यहाँ पे डाउट है कि whether it can be 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-1-2. 3-4-2-1 or 3-2-4-1. So let me okay, this 4 is linked to 1 because this talks about Indian, African, Native Americans, British Empire, and this also talks about the empire, colonization, colonized. So 4 and 1 look like a better thing. So 3-2-4-1 लगा लेते हैं, देखा जाएगा, जिसमें नेगेटिव तो है नहीं. So 3-2-4-1. Okay, not 100% sure, but still time के उसमें ठीक है. Okay, so we are not doing that good on time. Let's go to the passages. So first one सबसे पहले करना है हमको. In making predictions and judgments about uncertainty, people do not appear to follow the calculus of chance or statistical theory of prediction. Daniel Kahneman, they rely on the limited number of heuristics which sometimes yield reasonable judgments and sometimes lead to severe and systematic errors. Heuristics are rules of thumb, decision-making shortcuts. Kahneman and Tversky didn't think relying on them was always a bad idea, but they focused their work on heuristics that led people astray. Over the years, they and their adherents assembled a long list of decision-making flaws. The availability, heuristic, environment. Kahneman won an economics Nobel. The guy died. They couldn't share the prize, and the heuristics and biases, insights related to money became known as behavioral economics. Okay, so first paragraph he talks about, these two guys talked about heuristics, and they were not big fans of it, and there were a lot of flaws in thinking. Okay, ठीक है, चलो आगे. The implications for how to make better decisions though are less clear. First generation decision analysis, such as Howard Raffa, this guy recognized the flaws described as real, but thought the focus was misplaced and led to a fatalistic view of a man as a cognitive cripple. Even some heuristics and biases researchers agreed. And so a new set of decision scholars began to examine whether those shortcuts our brains are taking are actually all that irrational. Okay, ठीक है, तो clear है इसमें. पहले मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि जो shortcuts है वो irrational है. Whereas this guy second paragraph में कुछ लोग आ गए हैं, ये कह रहे हैं कि नहीं, it is not very sure that these shortcuts are very irrational or not. Okay, that notion wasn't entirely new. Herbert Simon had begun to use heuristic in a positive sense in 50s. Decision makers seldom at the time or mental processing power to follow the optimization process outlined by the decision analyst. He argued so they satisficed by taking shortcuts and going the satisfactory course of action rather than continuing to search for the best. तो हर्बर्ट साइमन पहले से थे इसमें, और इन्होंने एक ऑप्टिमाइजेशन प्रोसेस देखी थी. टाइम नहीं है तो आप ऐसे कर सकते हो, एंड देन फर्स्ट सैटिस्फैक्टरी कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन. ओके, Simon's bounded rationality is often depicted as a precursor to the work of Kahneman. It was different in intent, where they showed how people departed from rational model for making decisions. Simon disputed rational model was actually the best. He disputed that rational was the best. In the 80s, others began to join. Gerd, who said that he was first dubious of some results. By tweaking and framing of a question, sometimes possible to make apparent cognitive illusions go away. For example, he found that doctors and patients far likely to assess diseases correctly when the statistics are presented as natural frequencies rather than as percentages. Okay. Bounded rationality. Okay. He is not alone in arguing that we shouldn't be too quick to dismiss the heuristics, gut feelings, snap judgments, or other methods humans use to make decisions as necessarily inferior. Even Kahneman shares this belief. One of the stars studies how people develop expertise, and he sees generally the process being a lot naturalistic and impressionistic than the models of decision analysis. He and Kahneman have together studied when going with gut works and concluded that Gaines for reliable intuition needs predictable situations with opportunities for learning. Okay, so fine. यहाँ पे एक बार just quickly देख लेते हैं इसको. So these two guys were basically against the heuristic. They said it's not rational. And then these guys came along. They said, no, this is not correct. And sometimes these are actually good. And then he started using this heuristic in a positive sense. And then Simon came up with bounded rationality. And he says that rational was not the best model. Rather, you can frame a question in different way. Okay. And he's not alone. We shouldn't be quick to dismiss heuristics. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the questions. Argument that heuristics affect our decision-making process negatively can be invalidated if it can be proven that. Okay, so this argument is of Daniel Kahneman that heuristics affect our decision-making process negatively. It can be invalidated. We have to weaken it. It can be proven that. The optimization process outlined by decision analysis isn't any more efficient compared to bounded rationality. Decision makers do not always have the luxury of time to follow the optimized decision process outlined by decision analysts. Decisions are often influenced by several biases, most of which we identified and eliminated. Heuristics-based decisions help an individual in avoiding over-analyzing every situation. Okay, so we have to weaken the point or invalidate that heuristics से हमारी negative decision making negative होती है. Heuristics means जो biases आ जाते हैं, तो biases कैसे हम eliminate करेंगे? So if we have a way of eliminating the biases, then that will invalidate this. So A says optimization process found by decision is more efficient compared to this. But this doesn't talk about heuristics. He's saying the decision analyst is more efficient than, so this is not the correct answer. Decision makers do not always have the luxury of time. ये time पर constraint वाली बात यहाँ पे नहीं हो रही है. Heuristics से का जो biases हैं उसको कैसे avoid करना है. Decision makers, okay, so decisions are always often influenced by several biases, most of which can be, okay. So if you can identify and eliminate the biases from a thought process, then heuristic-based decisions can be okay. So this is invalidated by 3. Yes, this looks okay. Heuristic-based decision help an individual in overriding or गलत है, तो third के साथ जाएंगे. Examples of doctors and patients assessing disease correctly, risks correctly when statistics are presented natural frequencies weakens which of the following argument. Okay. So यहाँ पे बताया गया था कि this was used by this guy. Tweaking the framing of question. Simon's bounded rationality. How people departed from rational model was actually best disputed and is dubious of result. But tweaking the framing of question sometimes possible to make cognitive illusions go away. Okay. So weakens which of the following argument? Cognitive illusions of participants of a study are a function of how the questions are framed to them. Weakens which of the following arguments? Cognitive illusions of participants of a study are a function of how the questions are framed. ये तो strengthen कर रहा है इसको. This is strengthening it, is not weakening it. So this is not the answer. It is not possible to circumvent the influence of cognitive bias of decision makers while making decisions. It is not possible to circumvent the influence of cognitive. Okay, so इसको weaken कर रहा है ना ये, क्योंकि ये बोल रहे हैं कि circumvent नहीं कर सकते हम cognitive bias को, but then we are able to do it by when we are presenting the data in a different way. So when we are framing questions differently, we are able to circumvent the influence of cognitive biases. So this is weakening. Definitely second should be the correct answer. Decision makers go with the first satisfactory course of action instead of following an optimization. No. Heuristics and other methods human use to make decisions are inferior. No. So second के साथ में जाएंगे. Which of the following best represents the contrast between the work of Herbert Simon and that of Kahneman? So Herbert Simon क्या कह रहा था कि bounded rationality is often depicted as a precursor So whereas they showed how people departed from rational model, he disputed that rational model was actually the best. ठीक है, तो इसका आंसर तो यहीं से मिल जाएगा हमको. The former showed that people didn't depart from rational model to take decisions, while the latter showed otherwise. नहीं, ये यहाँ पे साफ साफ लिखा हुआ है, disputed that rational was the best, whereas they showed how people departed from rational model. He disputed that rational was the best. This doesn't capture. The former showed that not all rational models provide the best course of action. The latter showed that rational models are not followed by individuals. Not all rational models may. Former showed that rational model may not be the best, whereas latter showed the use of heuristics goes against the rational models. Just a second. Oh, sorry. So, former showed that rational model may not be the best. Yes, Simon said rational model. Simon disputed that rational model was actually best. Yes, so former showed that rational model may not be the best, whereas latter showed the use of heuristics goes against the latter. Yes, so this captures it quite well. It looks to be the correct answer. Okay. Which of the following, if true, doesn't weaken the fatalistic view of man as a cognitive cripple as understood from the second para? Doesn't weaken the fatalistic view of man as a cognitive cripple. That means 3 are weakening and 1 is not weakening. Our gut feeling is fairly reliable when it comes to dangerous places of people. So this is weakening, right? Because we are not a cognitive cripple. So this is weakening. Heuristics and biases are based on repetitive. This is also weakening. Sport people take good instinctive decisions even under high pressure. This is also weakening. Shortcut decisions compensate for the lack of little efficiency. No, efficiency की बात नहीं हो रही है यहाँ पे. So this one doesn't weaken. So this was a very easy question. All right. So how are we doing? 17 minutes left. 2 ही हो पाएंगे. Okay. All right. Human को आय को बाद में करेंगे. इसमें चलते हैं. The relationship between sleep, dreaming, and creativity has been the subject of conjecture for hundreds of years. The American inventor Thomas Edison designed a strategy for mining his dreams for material. He would doze off with a steel sphere in each hand. Once his body went limp, spheres would drop with clatter. He doesn't recall details of a dream, doesn't record any insights. Okay. So sleep, dreaming और creativity के बीच में subject of conjecture चला रहा है hundreds of years. तो इन्होंने एक strategy design की, ठीक है. Scientific studies seem to validate these study participants asked to incubate a problem in their dreams often came up with a useful solution. Both the frequency and complexity of one's dream recall have been correlated with higher scores on creativity evaluations. Stage of sleep most closely associated is known as REM. REM begins 70 minutes after a person loses consciousness and is filled with rich with dream life. Lucid dreams in which dreamer knows he or she is dreaming can sometimes direct the dream thought to primarily occur in REM. Okay, so यहाँ पे इन्होंने स्टडी किया है and people were incubating a problem in the dream and both the frequency and complexity of dreams recall have been correlated with high score on creative, and this was in REM. ठीक है. But researchers have recently identified another state of mind that lies in the transition between waking and sleeping and maybe even more fertile for creative inspiration than REM. It's called N1 or sleep onset, and it is the first of 3 stages in pre-REM sleep. One is a hybrid or semi-lucid state of mind. Phase Cox. Individuals suggest waking. अरे थोड़ा वो कर लो यार, म्यूट कर लो कोई प्लीज.
अरे सॉरी सर.
Individuals are waking from sleep. The shadowy frontier between waking and dreaming, to which all three may be the source of most humanity's novel ideas. People called hypnagogia, even the Greek, after the Greek words for sleep, inspired by Thomas Lecoq, had studies a nap with a plastic bottle that dropped when they fell asleep. They were then tested to see if they could solve a math problem with a hidden rule. She found that those who woke from the earliest stage of sleep were far more likely to solve the problem. Okay, so पहले में REM की बात हुई थी, यहाँ पे एक N1 stage आ गई है, which is the first of 3 stages in pre-REM sleep, and N1 is a hybrid or hybrid. So this fellow Celia Lecoq's individuals begin to detach. Okay, so यहाँ पे इन्होंने experiment किया. Like REM, N1 also features involuntary dream-like perceptual phenomena. They are known as hypnagogic hallucination. They combine details from recent waking experiences, loosely associate memories in novel or unusual. Difference that in N1, the dreamer is close to the surface of sleep to conscious control in external perceptual environment. The relationship between hypnagogia and creativity makes intuitive sense. One major theory of creativity posits that it results when our minds make connection between distantly related concepts stored in it. This is a process that is thought to occur naturally during sleeping and dreaming. New memories mingle in novel and abstract ways with the older ones as a means of consolidating, laying down tracks in the brain's thought. later recollection. Studies propose that meshing together of old and new in the process it prepares to navigate a fuller range of possible scenarios in our waking life. Okay, so this talks about sleep, dreaming, creativity, and we've been going on for a long time. And scientific studies have validated this. REM sleep में इन्होंने एक experiment किया था, which is 70 minutes. And then another state of mind, जो कि REM से अलावा, which is N1, and this was done by this French neuroscientist, and this also talks about the same, and this is called hypnagogia. Okay, and then they were tested. So like REM, N1 also involves often features involuntary perception. These are hypno and relationship between this and creativity. Fine. So यहाँ पे दो तरीके से इन्होंने किया, एक REM के टाइम पे किया, एक N1 के टाइम पे किया. And they found that N1 के टाइम पे आदमी ज्यादा क्रिएटिव हो जाता है. Okay, purpose of first para is to establish the idea that okay, the relationship between sleep, dreaming, and creativity has been studied for hundreds of years. ऐसा बोल तो रहा है कि relationship between sleep, dreaming, and creativity has been the subject of conjecture for hundreds of years. So तू ये क्या बोल रहा है? Has been studied for hundreds of years. Okay, looks like a distortion. बाकी के देखते हैं. Conjecture that dreaming was associated with creativity is not a novel one. Okay, conjecture that dreaming was associated with not a novel one. Fine, this looks okay. Scientific studies provide corroboration for the connection between dreaming and creativity. ये फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में नहीं लिखा है, ये तो सेकंड पैराग्राफ का फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट है, दैट सीम्स टू वैलिडेट दीस टेल्स. सो दिस इज नॉट द आंसर, एंड बिकॉज वी हैव टू पर्पस ऑफ फर्स्ट पैरा, दिस स्टेटमेंट इज गिवन इन सेकंड पैरा, सो थर्ड कैन नॉट कम. इट वाज थॉमस एडिसन हु रिकॉग्नाइज्ड द कनेक्शन बिटवीन ड्रीमिंग एंड क्रिएटिविटी. ऐसा किसने कहा है? उसने थॉमस एडिसन का एग्जांपल दिया. इट डजंट मीन दैट he had designed a strategy. It doesn't mean that he recognized the connection. So इसमें फर्स्ट और सेकंड में कंफ्यूजन हो सकता था, बट फर्स्ट वाज अ ट्रैप एक्चुअली, बिकॉज ही सेज रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन स्लीप, ड्रीमिंग, क्रिएटिविटी हैज बीन स्टडीड फॉर हंड्रेड्स ऑफ इयर्स. वहां पे लिखा है हैज बीन द सब्जेक्ट ऑफ कंजेक्चर, और वो सेकंड में कैप्चर किया हुआ क्या, कंजेक्चर दैट ड्रीमिंग वाज एसोसिएटेड विद क्रिएटिविटी इज नॉट अ नॉवेल वन. दिस लुक्स फाइन. The answer to which of the following question needs to be evaluated to assess the success of study mentioned in the second paragraph. Second paragraph में क्या स्टडी हुई है, फिर से देख लेते हैं एक बार. Incubate a problem that the team came up with a useful solution. Both the frequency and complexity have to be correlated with higher scores. Stage of sleep known as REM. Whether the usefulness of solution to a problem offered by participants can be tangibly compared. Okay. Whether the frequency of dream recall is consistent among participants of the study. Whether the creativity evaluation criteria are standardized for all participants. Whether it is possible to detect whether participants have entered REM sleep. I don't know. I'm quite confused in this kind of a question. Evaluate to assess the success of study mentioned in the second paragraph. ये तो सारे ही दिख रहे हैं मेरे को. In fact, whether the usefulness of solution can be tangibly compared. Okay. Whether the frequency of dream is consistent. ये शायद हट भी सकता है. Whether the creativity evaluation criteria, whether it was whether possible to नहीं, इसको छोड़ देना ये भी बेटर है, छोड़ दो इसको. I'm not sure of this. The study conducted by Cecil Leacock's most confirmed which of the following conclusions. Study consider Leacock's. Okay, so Leacock's की study यहाँ पे आ गई. When individuals just begin to detach. Thomas Edison was right about the connection. ये थोड़ी इसकी study का कोई conclusion है. Waking from N1 brings out the creativity of individuals while tackling difficult problems. Yes, ये तो बोला इसने कि N1 sleep से आने से they were tested to see if they could solve a math problem with a hidden rule. He found that those who woke up from the earliest stages were far more likely to solve the problem. This looks okay. Lucid state of mind is the breeding ground. Lucid state है क्या इसमें? This is not a lucid state, ना? This is a different state of mind. कहाँ लिखा हुआ? Semi-lucid है. This is semi-lucid. This is not lucid. There is a correlation between creativity and at what stage of sleep one wakes from. I would go with 2 here. Okay. The author believes a relationship between hypnagogia and creativity makes intuitive sense, not because. ये last paragraph में पढ़ा था हमने. Hypnagogia and creativity makes intuitive sense. So not because. That means except का question है. Creativity is said to arise out of connection between extremely distant concepts, something that is facilitated by hypnagogia. तो ये तो लिखा हुआ है यहाँ पे ना कि makes connection between distantly related objects stored, concepts stored in our memories. So this is given. So this is not the answer. Hypnagogic hallucination combine details from recent waking experiences with loosely associated memories novel. Yes. New memories mingle in a novel and abstract with older ones. यही बोल रहा है ये. Recent with loosely associated memories. Okay. तो ये भी दिया हुआ है. Then we have mashing up of old and new helps eliminate redundant scenarios. ये भी दिया हुआ है. Mashing together of old and new is a process that helps to minimize redundancy and complexity. This is also given. तो hypnagogia is closer to the surface of sleep, allowing the dreamer to consciously control. तो इसका इससे क्या लेना देना है? Creativity से इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है. ठीक है. This is just a process. This looks to be the correct answer. Okay, so we are left with 8 minutes and I have only time for one passage now. दूसरा तो होगा नहीं. The human eye is a sophisticated instrument. Images enter through a curved lens in the front, pass through its GUI, which relays the signal to optic hub that carries the picture. Engineers have attempted to replicate this structure for about a decade. New artificial eye mimics the spherical shape. Hope this achievement could lead to sharper prosthetic. Paper on publishment. ठीक है. Fine. इसमें कुछ नहीं है ऐसा. Research built on the fact that Persco-white conductive used in solar cell can be used to create thin nanowires several thousand millimeter. These wires may be the structure of eye, long, thin photoreceptor cells. Okay. Difficulty is how do we fabricate nanowires? Constructing this because it's when you try to image something, image that forms after the lens is actually curved. Says this guy who reviewed the paper, not directly involved in. If you have a flat sensor, image cannot be focused. Okay, तो रेटिना को कर्व करने से काम होगा. इसमें इतने डिटेल में घुसने से फायदा नहीं. क्वेश्चन में अगर चाहिएगा तो आ जाएंगे. टू सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम they deformed a soft element foil into hemispherical and they treated this with this process में घुसना नहीं रहता हमें शुरू में. This process led the material studied with nanoscale pores. Researchers were left with curved images that conveniently dense clustered holes. Okay. Once they had the curved retina, they incorporated an artificial eye. The team filtered biometric ionic liquid. One very important component is once these nanowires generate charges, charge will be exchanged with some ions. This electrical exchange allows Persco-white to perform electrochemical functions of detecting light. Okay. The team tested the artificial eye. It managed to process patterns of light in 19, half the time. Produced images that have greater contrast and those it could pick up a greater rate of wavelength. Fans hope to work with. Okay, ठीक है. तो टाइम को देखते हुए इसमें पहले क्वेश्चंस पे सीधे जाना जरूरी है. Which of the following is true about the fabrication of biomimetic version of the eye? Fabrication के बारे में यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है सेकंड पैराग्राफ में किस तरीके से बनाए. तो यहाँ से आंसर मिलना चाहिए. It uses a hemispherical foil coated with aluminum oxide to function like a curved retina. So hemispherical है क्या यहीं पे? यहाँ पे तो नहीं दिया हुआ है. Hemispherical कहाँ पे? ये यहाँ पे. To solve the problem, deformed soft aluminum foil into a hemispherical shape. Then they treated the metal with electrode that converted into insulator called aluminum oxide. ये कह रहा है कि coated with aluminum oxide. तो coated थोड़ी ये तो convert हुआ है. So this is not the answer. Persco-white nanowires act as a photoreceptor cell generating charge from light cells. Okay, so this is a conductive and light sensitive material used in solar cells. Can be used to create extremely thin nanowires. Several these wires may be the structures of this photoreceptor cells. This looks okay. ये लग रहा है कि ये हो जाएगा ये. Persco-white nanowires can produce charge only when immersed. ऐसा तो only जैसा तो कुछ भी नहीं होना चाहिए. तो ये तो गलत है. Nanoscale pores in aluminum foil assist in generation of Persco-white nanowires. ये यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है कहीं पे. This process also left material studded with nanoscale pores. As a result, the researcher was left with a curved hemisphere that had conveniently dense clustered holes in which they could grow. Okay, so so ये भी ठीक दिख रहा है, ये भी ठीक दिख रहा है. दोनों में से कौन सा लगाया जाएगा? Persco-white nanowires act as photo generating charges from light signals and nanoscale pores. Second वाले को थोड़ा ध्यान से देखना पड़ेगा. This left the material studded with. Okay, so they soft aluminum treated with this electrode converted into this left. तो ये जो एल्यूमिनियम फॉइल में नहीं है, ये तो कन्वर्ट हो गया जब उसके बाद में है. तो दिस शुड नॉट बी द आंसर. तो ये लगा देते हैं. ओके, लेट्स गो टू द नेक्स्ट वन. द फंक्शन ऑफ आयोनिक लिक्विड्स. आयोनिक लिक्विड्स तो कंडक्ट करने का लिक्विड का यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है. लिक्विड सॉल्ट. Team filled its biomimetic with ionic liquid salt in which charged particles can move. One very important component. And once these nanowires generate charges, the charge will be exchanged with some of the ions. These exchange allows the Persco-white to perform the electrochemical function of detecting light and sending that signal. Okay. So create the charges necessary. Create the charge नहीं है, ये तो conduct करता charge. Generate signals in external image processing. Generate थोड़ी कर रहा है. Fill the cavity. It can be grown to perform their photoreceptor. Transfer the electric charge. Transfer the electric charge. This looks okay. This was a straightforward question. Which of the following cannot be inferred from the last para? Okay, last para में क्या बोल रहा है? Natural eye has blind spots in its field of vision. So it managed to patterns half the time produce images that are greater emitted by this light blue. It could pick up later and lack the blind spot. Yes, so natural eye में blind spot होता है. This can be inferred. Natural eye has lower contrast and less clear edges than the artificial eye. ऐसा तो लिखा हुआ है. यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कि it has a greater contrast and clear edges than both. तो इसको natural eye cannot process the range of wavelengths. ये भी लिखा हुआ है. It could pick up a greater range of wavelengths. Human eye is slower than prosthetic eye. ये भी लिखा हुआ है यहाँ पे कि as little as 19 milliseconds. चारों ही दिख रहे हैं. तो फिर कौन सा मार्क किया है? एक बार ढंग से पढ़ना पड़ेगा. Natural eye has blind spots, so in some ways it lacked the blind spot दिया हुआ है. Natural eye image has lower contrast and less clear edges than that of artificial eye. So it produced images that had a greater contrast and clearer images than those generated by a flat image sensor. तो यहाँ कह रहा है than that of an artificial eye. Okay, so यहाँ पे distortion आ गया. तो यही होना चाहिए. Natural eye cannot process the range, ये तो बता रहा है, cannot process the range, and then human eye is slower. ये दिखा. तो this is the correct answer. And then let's go to the next question. Problem created by rigid and flat electronic light sensors while mimicking the functions of natural eye is that. तो फ्लैट वाला कहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है? यहाँ पे कहीं पे था ना. कंस्ट्रक्टिंग कर्व रेटिना व्हेन यू ट्राई टू. हाँ, ये लिखा हुआ है यहाँ पे ना. ओके, लास्ट नहीं है. How do we fabricate an array of nanowires in hemispherical substrate? Constructing curved retina because light only hits after it passes through a curved lens. When you try to image something, the image that forms the lens is actually curved. An electrical engineer says, if you have a flat sensor, then the image cannot be focused sharply. Okay. तो इमेज, क्योंकि वो इमेज जो होती है कर्व होती है, फ्लैट सेंसर पे वो फोकस नहीं होती है. तो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएटेड बाय रिजिड while mimicking is that they do not replicate the functioning of retina which is curved. Okay, so ये तो looks like okay, they cannot be used to in Persco-wide nanowire से कोई लिंक नहीं है इसका. The image formed after passing through the lens is curved. Image formed after passing through the lens is curved. So how is this problem created by this rigid in this? They need to be hemispherical to fabricate. No, this is not correct. So between 1 and 3 we'll have to choose. Read it again. It says if you have a flat sensor, then the image cannot be focused very sharply. The retina is curved, but the electronic light sensors are rigid and flat. Okay, so retina curved है और ये flat है. Therefore, it cannot replicate the function of retina which is curved. So this looks to be a better answer than this. Image processing of formed. ठीक है. So this looks to be a. ओके, अब क्या कर सकते हैं? एक क्वेश्चन बच गया था, इसको देख लें वापस से, कुछ इसमें मिलता है तो. अदरवाइज वील हैव टू वाइंड इट अप, क्योंकि अब तो लास्ट वाले पे जाने का कोई फायदा नहीं है. द आंसर टू व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग नीड्स टू बी इवैल्यूएटेड. whether the usefulness of the solution to a problem can really, I don't think I want to break the head over this. I'm not sure. Not at all sure. ठीक है, okay. So we'll just let it be. Okay, some 10-15 seconds remain. So we'll just let that be.